I'm going to get started with the introductions while people are still logging on. We're excited to have you all here today. If you could enter your name and your organization and your contact information in the chat, that would be great. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We are recording this session for educational and quality improvement purposes. By participating, you're consenting to be recorded, and if you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect from the session. This is a community of practice. It's an active community. We really hope that everyone talks and discusses and helps each other as we about the pyramid model. And we will have a real situations, real solutions discussion, and these will be able to help solidify the skills that we are learning in the didactic presentations. The main components of an echo session, we will start with the didactic speaker. Today it is Tweety Yates, and then we will have our real situations, real solutions presentation and discussion, and then we will go into breakout rooms to discuss that presentation. All of these trainings are based off of Unpacking the Pyramid Model. It's a workbook, and if you attend 3 or more of these Echo Pyramid trainings, we will send you the workbook for free. This is our 4th session, so we are still working on sending that out to all of you who have been here for the first 3 times, and we will get those sent out to you. Every time you attend an Echo session, you are also entered to win a Pyramid Classroom kit. They are really great. I have a couple examples of these things in there. We have you can't see it because of the Zoom filters. But we have Tucker Turtle kits, feeling wheels, friendship skills. There's a lot of really awesome kits. And it's a really great resource. So, thank you, Faustine. So the more times that you attend, the greater chance you have of winning one of these kits to use in your classroom. We ask that you protect individual privacy. When you're sharing information, please use avoiding any real names. De-identify any family members, friends, coworkers, email addresses, examples and situations. And if you are unsure, you can contact a hub member. And that's just a reminder for the hub members, if you could put an asterisk before your name. We ask that everyone rename your Zoom profile, have your name, your state, and your organization. And then throughout the presentations, you can feel free to raise your hand if you have anything you want to ask or say, or you can put any comments you have in the chat. Pre-registration is really great. It allows you to receive any materials for each session in advance. To pre-register, I will actually be sending in the link because we've had some trouble with being able to get the Zoom link. It gets lost in everyone's emails. So I'll be sending the registration link again. And if you want to re-register for that, I can show you how to add it to your calendar so that it can just be on your calendar and you can have the Zoom link for the next future Echo sessions. So I'll send them the registration link, pick the sessions that you'd like to register for, and then you have to make sure to add it to your calendar down here in order to save the Zoom link and so it doesn't get lost in your inbox. To get a certificate of attendance, we have a survey link that we will be sending out. It would be great if everyone could fill out that survey. We really want to make sure these Echoes are a good use of everyone's time and hear your feedback on if there's anything we can improve. We will also make sure to send that link after the meeting to you. So if you fill out that survey and make sure to put your name in the chat, we'll make sure to send you a certificate of attendance. We do have a Canvas. You will automatically receive an invitation for Canvas if this is your first time, and this is where we will put all of our resources and past Echo sessions. We have real situations, real solutions presentations. If you know anyone who is struggling in their program, please reach out to us and we would love to have you present and just get some feedback from everyone in the Echo group. Today, our session presenter is Tweety Yates. This is her Part B presentation. We're very excited to have her, and she'll be presenting on emotional literacy and different tools and resources that we can use to help children learn and better understand emotional literacy. So I will turn the time over to her.
Okay, thank you, Hannah, and welcome everybody. So I'm going to pull my PowerPoint up here quickly. So can everybody see that? Okay. Are we good? Okay. Like Hannah said, this is part B or part two of this, and our focus is on emotional literacy. And you should have the PowerPoint, the PDF of the PowerPoint slides, as you did last time, as well as a resource sheet. And the resource sheet has any resources that were included in that first part of emotional literacy, as well as any resources included in this part of the presentation. So it's set up where you can just click on links to make that easy to access those resources. So let's go ahead and jump in and keep going around this emotional literacy part. So just as a reminder, emotional literacy is that ability to identify and express emotions in a healthy way, to be able to like know what those emotions are, to understand them, and then tell the difference between complex emotions. We talked about last time about the importance of having a large emotion vocabulary, and how the larger a child's vocabulary is, the easier it is for them to discriminate their own feelings. And as they get better at that, then it becomes easier for them to discriminate others' feelings. So it helps with friendship skills, it helps with problem solving, it helps with, all kinds of social emotional kinds of areas. And the last one is that hard one of being able to not only express our emotions, but to regulate those emotions. So the reason that I have this particular photo up here is like, these are hard skills. And they're hard for us as adults some days. So they're hard when we're talking about preschoolers. So the way that we thought about this last time was to think about, what do children need around emotional literacy? So they need to know emotion words, and that's what we really focused on last time. We talked about a lot of strategies to teach about emotions, as well as resources. A lot of the strategies and ideas that we talked about, I know they feel like they're repetitious, but they are on purpose, right? Because we know that because they are hard skills, that children need lots of different engaging ways to practice skills in order to begin to start to master these. And again, this is like building the capacity for emotional literacy, because they are hard skills. So one thing that we know is that it's not enough just to teach emotion words. So when you get your Unpacking book, the primary chapter for emotional literacy is chapter 14. And that's what we're kind of building from that chapter. But there are also other chapters that tie into this emotional literacy part. But what you'll find in that Unpacking book is there's a little scenario at the beginning of each chapter. And they're great because they're things that we can all relate to. I mean, they're just, you might change the names of a child, but you'll be able to really relate to some of those scenarios. And in chapter 14, one of the things that happens in the scenario is the teachers realize that they need to teach more emotion words. But they also find out that even when they're teaching emotion words, children might be using those words, but they still don't know what to do with it. So you might have a child who can now say they're getting angry, but then they still might go ahead and throw something or knock somebody's, blocks down, because they still don't have those strategies yet. So where we focused on, I need to know emotion words last time, this time we're going to keep building on that, because as we're teaching emotion words, we also want them to start linking those words with what it feels like in their body. So they can start, anticipating, uh-oh, I'm starting to get mad, or I'm just like super excited. And they can start to recognize it and link the words with the feeling. And then once they do that, they need strategies. What do they do with these emotions and feelings that they're having? One other thing that we talked about last time that I think is important is gathering some data. So thinking about what words, emotion words, are children using? And how are they using them? And is it in the right context? And are they just using things like happy, mad, sad? Or are they really starting to expand their emotion vocabulary word? Within that data collecting, we also talked about looking at ourselves. What words are we using? Like, are we limiting our emotion words that we're using? Or are we expanding those? So think about the words we're using, the words we're teaching, and how we can expand to expose children, give them more opportunities to learn about different emotions. So that's a part that will really help us think about this emotional literacy piece here. Okay. Okay. So let's jump into this. I need to know what it feels like part. So think about how we're teaching those emotion words, and we often will say things like when a child gets in a certain situation, we'll say, use your words. But think about switching that a little and saying, let's think of a word that matches what you're feeling, because they have to think a little bit more about that then. They have to start linking what they're feeling in their body to this word that they're going to use. And you can help them do that. So you're there to, I can help you think of a word that matches how you're feeling. So along that same lines, one of the things that we can do is just have available like the emotion cards. There's emotion, well, there are lots of different emotion cards, but and you can take pictures of children in the classroom, which is another great way to get emotion cards. But the discovery source that Hannah was talking about, where that set of emotional literacy cards, as well as on the challengingbehavior.org website, there's a set of free emotion faces in different languages that you can download. So those you can download like in larger sizes or smaller sizes. So make them in the smaller size and put them on a little ring. Maybe have them in different places in the room, or even just a set of cards. One teacher even had those little flexible like bracelet rings, and she had a bunch of them. She just kept it on her arm. So as different children were experiencing different emotions, that if they needed help in looking at some of the words you've been talking about to help them figure out what word describes what they're feeling, then she had it right there with her. But that really helps them start making that link. In addition to the fact that if you think about having these visuals, when we pair a visual with a verbal, it makes it easier for children to internalize that information, which then helps them with those coping skills. So, anytime we can have those visuals paired with that verbal, it's going to help them be more successful. So think about how you could add something like that if you're not already. I mean, we know we talk about those emotion faces, but just having them in different places so you can access them quickly to help a child figure out what they're feeling, right? Another thing that we've done that has really helped a lot of kids is just do a little cutout of a little figure. And then you have to have individual conversations with children, because every child's going to feel different emotions in different ways. But it's a great way to get them to think about what happens when they feel a certain way. And if they're not sure, they tend to start paying more attention to those kinds of things when they happen. So you can keep adding to their little figure as they figure out where they feel those emotions. And this was from a 4-year-old class. So you can see how, and this was the first conversation. So these were the emotions they picked first to sort of say, where in their body do they feel these emotions? So that's a great way to have that conversation. And in another classroom, they drew pictures, and then the teacher helped them write what they were illustrating in their pictures that they drew. So anything that's going to get them to really think about an emotion and what it feels like in their body is going to help them link that information. So what one teacher did, which I thought was such a great idea, is they had done a field trip to a doctor's office, had seen x-rays, and the doctor was showing them the x-rays. And so when they got back, of course, the kids wanted to set up in one of their center areas. They wanted to make it a doctor's office. So they made a doctor's office, and she used that book, Jessica's X-Ray, which has like, you know, kind of x-rays in it. And that's how she started that conversation when they were doing their little bodies of where they feel it, to think about it as an x-ray. So if you could see inside your body, what would it look like when you're really excited? What would it look like when you're really disappointed? And that really helped a lot of the kids kind of link x-rays to seeing inside their body to figure out how they were feeling. So that was kind of a fun and engaging way to talk about emotions after they did that field trip. Another thing, just think about children's books that you have, and ones that really show like a character, feeling a certain emotion where you can really see what they're doing. So in this one, a lot of people have the Roaring Mad Riley book, and it talks about Riley was mad. He was roaring mad, or she. She could feel her face get very hot. She huffed and she puffed. She was breathing so fast. Her hands curled into fists. Her shoulders rose up to her ears. Riley's body felt so tight. So anytime we can kind of engage them in conversations like that, and then, okay, that's what Riley did. And it wasn't just that Riley, curled her hands. She was huffing and puffing, and shoulders went up. So there were all kinds of things happening. And then get children to think about, first, as you're reading, what is she doing? What do you see that would let you know that she's getting angry or mad? And then what do you do? So sometimes just having that book really helps them link that information. Another thing to think about is the words that we teach again. So this is going to go back to those emotion words, but sometimes we forget to do the word tense and relaxed. But if you think about some of those emotions, those big emotions like getting angry or frustrated or just so excited, I just can hardly stand it, like if we teach them what it feels like when they're tense versus what it feels like when they're relaxed, that's really going to help them start thinking about those feelings in their body. And there's so many ways now to do relaxation kinds of things. Not only are there tons of books, but there turns children's books, but there's also lots of resources around, like turning down the lights, soft music, just slowing your body down, yoga poses, those kinds of things. So there's lots of ways to kind of teach that difference. What does it feel like when I'm just really tense, like a tin man, versus when I'm really relaxed, right? And then the relaxation thermometer, which again is available through Discovery Source, as well as on the Pyramid site, the challengingbehavior.org site, that children have. That's a good one to help them think about when they feel really, really, whatever word they want to use, mad, angry, upset, what does their body feel like? And then what did they do to get that calm feeling, to get that relaxed feeling? And that again is going to be different across different children. Some children will make up words for what they use to get their body to calm, but it's just whatever it works for them. That's what we're trying to do. We want them to make sure that they have some words to do that, and that they can link those words to what their body's feeling like. So another idea is, as you're teaching emotion words and what it feels like, is to think about what causes you to feel sad, what causes you to feel really excited about what you're doing. And you literally make a little emotion flip book. So you have a situation and then flip to the different emotions that might cause. So what you can do an individual flip book for a child who might be struggling with trying to figure that out, or you can do like a classroom book. And because what that does is it helps children see that different children react with different emotions, for the same, like someone throws sand on one child and they're just like, "Ah, you threw sand on me, no big deal." Another child gets really upset. So it shows them you can have lots of different emotions for different things that happen. And if you do it in a little notebook with binders, you can just keep adding to that. But it's a nice way to get them to see the causes of those feelings that they're having. Okay. So some of you may have used this book before, but what's kind of nice about this one is the pigeon will ride the roller coaster. So if you have, put it in chat or say share how you've used it. But what I like about this particular book is Pigeon anticipates what it's going to be like before he ever even rides the roller coaster. And he goes through this whole range of emotions, even to the point where, okay, I know I'm going to have to wait in line and I might have to wait for a long time. So he's already anticipating what it might feel like. And then when you do the strategy part next, then they can start thinking about, if I have to wait a long time, sometimes I get really upset when that happens. So what can I do? But he also, there's this whole range of emotions in here. So, it's like, it's going to be so awesome. And, when it's over, I'm going to have felt a lot of different feelings, right? So it has things like, I'll be excited because it's thrilling. I'll feel sad because it's over. I'll feel proud because I did it. So again, a whole range of emotions, but he's going through this scenario in his head before he ever even tries it, right? And then he actually does it. So that's kind of a fun one to use as a way, if you know that something's coming up that might create a lot of different emotions, that's a fun book to use to then have that conversation about how do you think you might feel when that happens? Maybe it's a change in the schedule or, some program that's coming up or something, but helping them talk through that is going to help them start building that skill of being able to anticipate. And then when we do this next part about strategies, then they're building those strategies that they can use in those different situations. Okay, so one last part here as we're thinking about teaching emotions and then what does it feel like? And I know you guys have probably had this happen too, but sometimes children with some of these emotions they'll do things like, if you see somebody crying, then they're sad. So as we're getting them to discriminate, we have to start also like breaking it down more. So if you think about this first photo here, she really is sad. So let's say she just fell on the playground. So she's really sad. The second photo, that little boy, they were out looking for bugs and one scared him. It jumped and it scared him. So he's not sad. It just scared him, right? And then this next little girl is just so frustrated. She just doesn't want anybody to say anything else to her. And it's making her really, really sad because they won't stop. They won't listen to her. And then the last one, those are like tears of joy. Those are happy tears because he just found out that his grandmother, who he has seen in a while, is coming to visit. So we need, as we start discriminating, when you see children start, uh-oh, they're crying, they're sad, then that's that cue to us. We need to keep working on those and keep discriminating because, again, these emotions are hard. So it's just trying to troubleshoot around some of that emotional vocabulary where it doesn't make it quite as confusing to them about what's happening. Right? And if you've ever tried to define some of these emotions, it's really hard when you start discriminating. Like, to tell you this example, with my grandson was staying with me. This was like 2 summers ago, but he said he came in because you know how that video time, even when you say, okay, I'm going to give you 15 extra minutes, but the deal is when I tell you that's up, we need to just shut it off, right? Knowing in your head that is not going to happen, but we're trying. So again, it was a struggle when that 15 minutes was up. And so I thought, okay, I'm really tired at this point. I need to just walk away for a minute. And he walked in and said, I didn't mean to make you mad. And I said, buddy, you didn't make me mad at all. I said, it's just frustrating when I try to give you a little bit of extra time and we kind of make a deal that, okay, when that time's up, you're going to shut it off. And then it's a struggle. And he goes, it frustrating the same thing as mad? And so I'm trying to explain that, well, no, you can be frustrated, but not be mad. And I'm giving him all these examples. And then he goes, hmm, still saying it sounds like the same thing to me. So, sometimes when we're trying our best to discriminate, it's really hard. So the more examples you can give, the more photos you can give, the more situations that they relate to, them start discriminating and using that wider range of words. Okay, so those are ideas to think about. How can we get children to start recognizing, linking those emotion words they're learning with what it feels like in their body? And then they're going to need strategies for, what do I do with all these emotions that I'm feeling? Okay, so wanted to go back just for a second. This is that part where we really start focusing on emotional regulation. So, that's that important ability to be able to regulate our emotions as well as our behavior in a whole lot of different situations that come up. And we know in preschool settings, lots of different situations come up. We also know that young children have big emotions and they're just learning all about those emotions and how to handle those emotions. So um, this can be that really tough part, as well as that co-regulation part. Because when they're preschoolers, we still need to be there to help them co-regulate. And it's even more important if they didn't have that when they were younger. They're going to need that co-regulation part to be able to self-regulate. So sometimes when we think about this part in emotional literacy of providing strategies, we focus on just anger or being mad, which is great, because if we could help children learn how to calm themselves before they go to their next setting, they have some strategies that they get really good at using. Those are great lifelong skills. So that's great. But the thing we want to keep in mind is, and I'm going to show you a lot of different calming, and a lot of them are because of, like being upset or something. But keep in mind that it's not just anger. A child can be really disappointed, right? Or they can be really excited and just bouncing all over the place. So it's all those emotions that we're trying to give them some strategies for how they can handle them. We also know that sometimes children with disabilities or children who have experienced trauma might need a little bit more support and instruction with this regulation piece. So just that disappointment one, just to remind you of another resource that is available. The Backpack series is a series made for families. You may have used these before, but I think the thing that I always think about with these, because there's a lot of words on there, and we're all bad about, you get something with a lot of words on it and you stick it in a pile and you think you'll look at it later, right? And then you don't, or you can't find it when you go to look for it. So different ways. They have great information on them and great examples. Think about how you could just pull out like a little pop of information about helping your child to understand and recognize disappointment, and maybe a little example and then what you might do that you could put into a newsletter or however you communicate with families that would just help families also have some strategies that they could help their child when they're really disappointed. And then those two books are good examples that we can use to engage children in conversations around that. Another book, What If I Know My Feelings? And so again, remember, we're thinking about how can I handle different emotions? So this goes through, what if I'm feeling shy? Well, I can watch until I'm ready to join in. What if I feel scared? I can ask for help. So it's taking lots of different emotions, but talking about what a child might do. So that's another one that's kind of a fun one to have and have discussions around. There's another book that goes with it by the same author called, okay, let me get this right, Jonathan James and the What If Monster. So this is a little what if monster that you're seeing here. But if you have a child in your classroom who constantly will go, but what if I'm not good at it? But what if they make fun of me? But what if, so you can't even get them to try things or have conversations about things because they block it every time with the what if. That's a cute book to use because the what if monster goes through all these, no, I can't paint because what if I'm not good? Or no, I can't play that game with them because what if they make fun of me? And then it flip-flops it and it says, but what if you are? But what if you try it and you are? Or it's okay if you're not great at it yet. So it's a good one also to help children kind of think about what they're feeling, and instead of blocking it, to actually try something and see what happens. And then you're there to support them in doing that. So a few other ideas and books that have lots of different strategies in them. These books are pretty simple with the print and all in it, but they give like calm down time. Look at all those different strategies. So these are books we might not read all at one time to children when we're building this emotional literacy part. But maybe we make it really fun and we pull it out every day and we go, okay, what do you think we're going to learn today? What strategy are we going to learn to calm down today? And so you get them kind of excited about, okay, what's going to be the next strategy, and then how you can try that, right? So I put the I calm down in there because that visual that's available, again, both Discovery Source and Pyramid Challenging Behavior website, that book, as you can see, has a pinwheel in it and goes through that strategy. So if it helps a child to see it in a book and then try it, then, that might encourage them to do it. As well as this Seeds for Success is out of Georgia, similar to the book nooks that we have on the Pyramid site, but it just gives different activities you can use around that calm down time book. Okay. So another calming strategy that's an easy one that, would work on the playground or anywhere a child's at is that muscle pressure, because when they just put like hugging themselves, that muscle pressure helps them calm down. So that's a really easy strategy that we can teach children. And in that book, 1, 2, 3, a calmer me, there's a repeated phrase throughout. And it's this one that's on here. 1, 2, 3, a calmer me. 1, 2, 3, I hug me. 1, 2, 3, relax and breathe. 1, 2, 3, a calmer me. And so for some of our like 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, that repeated phrase will be one that they remember. And so they'll stop and try that. And a lot of them we have found like the little, even just the I hug me, and just knowing that muscle pressure is going to make a difference is a huge strategy to teach them, and an easy one they can use in the grocery store. They can use it anywhere, right? So almost everybody's familiar now with Tucker Turtle and the books that are available for Tucker Turtle. And now those versions for home, also the home version. So this is that one that how we teach it can really engage children in doing the turtle tuck or thinking like a turtle. What would Tucker do? And they'll try different things, but we have to introduce it in a fun way. So that's where those puppets come in. And it actually has those steps of, I'm recognizing my feelings. So I got to go back to, I got to have, if I don't know the names of feelings, I'm going to have a hard time managing my feelings, right? So it goes back to how important that is. So I'm going to recognize that feeling and then stop my body, tuck inside my shell, and then come out when I'm calm and I have a better solution. So, you can practice it with a green sheet and everybody goes up under the sheet to practice taking breaths because that's the important part of this one, right? The taking the deep breaths. So a lot of classrooms when teachers have taught the turtle technique, and obviously you have to keep doing that, they have little calming areas or different areas set up where if children are starting to get upset, they can go over to those areas and then they'll have some of the visuals or like the Tucker, the puppet and the book that goes with it. So that's another way, even if children just recognize it and they know that I need to just go over here for a minute, take a few minutes to calm myself down. Those are huge strategies. One thing I wanted to point out with this that just happened in a classroom that I was in, it wasn't intentional at all. But after doing the turtle technique, this one teacher, she had a small room, so she didn't have a lot of extra room in her classroom, but she wanted a cozy corner is what they called it because it was in the corner. So she had a bookshelf and then she found a box that would just fit like between the wall and that bookshelf, the back. So, and she had it all cozy and she had the turtle. She had some squeeze toys in there, different things to help children calm themselves. But there was only one way in and one way out. So she had a child who had some attachment concerns, had not had that when younger. So he's 4 now but also had experienced trauma. And he was doing really well. He had really started to use some of the strategies. He loved the Tucker turtle technique. He had started to use it. And so this was a couple of weeks ago. I was in there observing and he started to get upset and he grabbed his little turtle and he went over to that cozy corner and he went in. Well, the teacher was so excited because he had not done that yet. She walked over. I mean, after a few minutes, she gave him a few minutes and then she walked over just to support him, to provide some, positive feedback about that. But when she knelt down to get at his level, he just completely lost it. And it took us a few minutes to figure it out, but it was because he's experienced trauma, right? And when she knelt down in front of that one way in and out, he felt trapped and he went completely into survivor mode. And again, that was not intentional. It's a lesson learned, but I think that those are the kinds of things that are important for us to think about. Um, when you have cozy corners or calming corners or Tucker Turtle, whatever that might be, think about you want either it's open like the turtle on the top here, or there are several ways to go in and out. So it doesn't make children anxious or it doesn't kind of put them in survival mode the way we set it up, because obviously that's not the intention. So that was a good lesson learned for us, I think. Another thing is just to think about as you're teaching these, the power of music, because we get these songs in our head and we sing them over and over again. And for children, music is so powerful and it helps them remember strategies. So this is just one that the teacher made up, but I'll show you a little bit of this one.
All right, here we go. Let me know you sing. Tucker the turtle is angry. Tucker the turtle is angry. Tucker the turtle is angry. Tucker the turtle and Slacker, Tiger shell and breathing, breathe, resty, Dante, breathe, Tucker, breathe. Tucker the turtle pops. Tucker the turtle is on he thinks so.
So they go through the steps. You got the rhythm and rhyme of that song that again's going to stay in their head. So it's a fun way to think about how you provide more opportunities for them to practice some of these skills, right? Okay, so just a couple additional resources. These are on your resource sheet. So the Barton Lab has a set of materials called Thoughtful Thursdays, and there's one in there on Tucker with some things you can share with families and fun ways to practice. And then Wisconsin Pyramid also put together this Managing My Big Feelings, Thinking Like a Turtle. And they sort of with each step have some fun ways to kind of teach that and get children to practice it. So those are just two resources. Okay. And then I wanted to share with you this. This was an example of a family night at a school. So not only, well, they were using Tucker Turtle in the classroom, so they wanted to share that with families. So they gave the families the Tucker Turtle Takes Time to Tuck and Think at Home. They went through it first and went through the steps, and then they used the turtle pattern that's on the Challenging Behavior website. But look what else they did. So when the children and their family members who were there put together the little turtle, they also had the filling wheel that you can download again from the Challenging Behavior website or from Discovery Source. But they gave each family one of those little filling wheels put on the back of the turtle, so the child could identify how they were feeling. So one more opportunity to kind of practice that. So I just thought that was a great idea of a way to share that with families and to practice and give them strategies and ideas. Here's another example from a program. This is in Chicago, but literally this poster here it's from the bottom of the wall to the top of the wall. So it's a wall where families sit and wait when their children are being assessed. I mean, or they are there for assessment or those kinds of things. It's also where a lot of the children in the school pass by. So they have this big old wall full of just pyramid model for families, and they change it periodically. So right now it's Tucker Turtle because they've been using that. So Tuck and Think. So there are resources for families. But what was really cool, see those strings hanging down from the turtle puppets? They fixed it where you can pull the string and it pulls the turtle in his shell. Like his arm, everything goes in his shell. So as they're sitting there waiting, the kids can practice that. The families can see the strategies. So again, a great way to give children more opportunities to practice this when we know that families share in this also. Okay, so a couple more things here. Not every child is going to think that Tucker's this great thing, right? For many reasons. It just doesn't resonate with them. But think about our children, like preschoolers who love things that go, and they love bulldozers and all the kind of different equipment kinds of things. This book, Buddy the Bulldozer, uses the exact same steps as Tucker, but because it was written by a mom whose child was in a class where they were teaching Tucker, and he just, I don't know, just didn't connect with him, but he loved bulldozers. So same steps, except when Buddy the Bulldozer gets upset, his engine overheats. So he has to learn how to cool his engine down. And not only like when he and another bulldozer get upset and their engines overheat, they also then problem solve about what they could do next time. So it has that little extra step in there about problem solving too, like not just stopping with kind of calming yourself down. So that's a great one if you have children who they're just not connecting with turtle. Or from Head Start Inclusion, there's the Dragon Brain Girl and Boy. If you have kids that love dragons, then they think this is kind of cool. And all the visuals are there to download for free. And again, there's lots of different books you could use with that. But because these skills are so important, we want to keep thinking about, if it's not working for a child, then what else can I try? What are they interested in? Can I pull in something that way? Because we know how important it is for them to learn some of these skills. Okay, Head Start for Inclusion has all those free visuals you can just download, and those are like easy things you can share with families that can be done. Barton Lab, if you have a child who has a stuffed animal, that's their favorite stuffed animal, like a bear, then do the bear breathing with that one, because they'll do it because it's a bear. So different ideas there. This one was using the visuals from the Head Start Inclusion, but it was originally developed for this one child who was kind of struggling with this, and these were the things that he liked the best. So they had a little area in the classroom that it had the visual, blow bubbles, then it had bubbles there, do wall push-ups, and they literally did a poster on the wall at the child's level and handprints, so he could do the wall push-ups and then count to 10. There was a little bucket with 10 numbers in it, but all the children ended up using it. So it was a great way to get children to practice different strategies, right? Also think about, this is a lot of strategies, and sometimes we teach a lot of different strategies to try to make it connect with different children. But what if you have that child who, like, it's just too much? That's just way too much for them. They just can't do that. But we know that they seem to really be connecting a little with the turtle technique. And we know that this is the child that, with their schedule, they like to take each part off and put it away that it's finished. So we know that works for them. So do a schedule then with the steps, like turtle technique or whatever those steps might be, and break it down so they can go step by step and build that skill, practice that skill more. So as we think about what we've been talking about, introducing these skills, think about this: demonstrate, describe. How do you use it? How are you going to demonstrate it and describe it to children? What's it going to help them do? Why are they even going to want to try this, right? And then where's it going to live in the classroom so they can access it? So after you kind of introduce it, how are you going to let them practice it to kind of engage them and get them kind of into this idea of doing it? Then as we see them using it, really providing that positive descriptive feedback with their name, the skill of what they're actually doing, and then really just acknowledging that. Like, Blair, you noticed when you were feeling frustrated and use the pinwheel to calm down. Way to go. So we're kind of guiding them and directing them as they're trying out these skills. And just thinking about how to individualize again. So if you got that child who needs to be able to see those things they're practicing, kind of, I tried it, it went away, right? Or a child who loves bunnies, then they could do the bunny sniffing, and there's a visual for that, and that's on your resource sheet. Or just different languages that you need. And on the challenging behavior website, there's all these resources are in several different languages. Okay. And then for that child who needs more practice, just be really intentional about how you can think about other parts of the day where you could work some fun and engaging ways that they can practice these opportunities. Don't forget about movement, because we know movement can help calm bodies, and it helps children be better able to learn. So they're taking in all this information better. So just again, there are fun books. Think about fun ways during the day that when we need a movement break, you can just do something fun like the bear walk or starfish jumps, those kinds of things that everybody just does for a few minutes. And then you can kind of get everybody back going. Another idea with that is we did a little bag with animals and emotions in it, and children would pull out an animal and then pull out an emotion and then do a dance to try to match what those were. Think about the vocabulary words they're learning, not just emotion words, but also just vocabulary in general, which we know is important. So that's a fun way to kind of embed those together. So this last part here, kind of last message is, again, I want to go back to, we know that that young children have big emotions and all these feelings inside. And we're trying to help them learn the names, connect that feeling, come up with strategies. But sometimes those emotions are just too big for them. And when we've tried to set up this environment of all feelings are okay, then they also need to know that when they get too big, that we're there for them, that they can come to us. Because when children's emotions are high, their logic and language often tends to be low. And, that's when we want to connect. So just keeping in mind that we want to just set it up where they also know we're there for them when they're having these big emotions. So think about how we can think ahead, really pay attention, monitor when we see them escalating or something getting ready to happen before it happens, kind of swooping in there and helping them reflect and kind of acknowledge what they're feeling, and then use some of those calming techniques if that's appropriate at that moment that you've been teaching, and then reinforce that. And again, just a couple of other resources for families as we're doing this that we share with families. And those backpack series have this whole range of emotions. But again, I think about your families and how you can relay that information in a way that's really useful to families. Okay. Be really intentional about thinking across the day when you can teach emotional literacy kinds of things in a very fun and engaging way, so children continue to kind of practice those kinds of things. And then just to close, you have friendship coming next. So I'm going to show just a little bit of this, because this is a book about sharing. So when we're unpacking the pyramid pieces here, we're doing them in sections, but all these sections fit together. So think about, as you're thinking about friendship skills on the next one, watch this.
Well, yes, he does want to eat the ice cream, and maybe Groovy Joe will share. But look at his face. His eyes are big. His eyebrows are kind of slanted down. What's he feeling, Gideon?
He's feeling like the top will be empty.
You just said a word, though. You said that Groovy Joe is
Worried.
he's worried. I wonder why he's so worried. Why did
So that book's about sharing, but she's doing such a great job of pulling in that emotion piece. And when we ask those questions, exactly what she's doing about how do you think he's feeling? Why do you think he's feeling that way? That also builds that perspective taking, which builds empathy and those skills. So just think about, even though we're unpacking individually, how all these fit together and support that social emotional piece. Okay. Okay, so any questions or thoughts for me? Otherwise, that kind of wraps us up with this emotional literacy piece. Oh, or Amy, so I'm looking quickly at the chat. I love so in your classroom, you call it a take a break area. So give me a break, take a break. That's another great idea. And Hannah, yeah, having different versions, different options for children really helps try to figure out what they'll connect with. So we build those skills.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, but I just love seeing how you showed how customizable everything was. And I think, the strategies are the same, but you can really change it for each student. And I think that's so amazing because all of the kids are different. So I
Yeah.
just love that.
Yeah, good, thanks.
I had something I wanted to add to that. I was working in a classroom and I tried doing smell the flower, blow on the pinwheel for one
Yeah.
of the children, and he was not having it. He was not interested in that. And so I asked him, like, well, what do you want to smell? And he said, the Spider-Man cake. And I said, okay, well then let's smell the Spider-Man cake and blow out the candles.
Yeah,
And
that's a
so,
great example.
so we just adjusted it
Yeah,
based on that child's interests.
yeah,
But I was thinking about that when the bulldozer thing came up, and
yes.
yeah, so just adapting it is important.
Yeah, I love that, Teresa. Thank you for sharing that. And it's just another example. It's not connecting with that child. So how can we figure it out? And you just ask him, you know? So great example. Thank you.
Tweety, what was the name of that book again that said that if you can't do the, or if I'm sad, then do this? What was the name of that?
It's, oh gosh, you're gonna ask me that now. It's the What If I Know My Feelings book.
Okay. Yeah, I should have taken a picture and I
Oh,
forgot.
that's okay. And it's on your, I don't know, because those PowerPoint, when you do the PDF, it kind of crams it all together. But please feel free, if you can't find something, just shoot me an email or something. But that one it's like, what if I know all my feelings, but
Okay.
I don't know what to do with them, right? So it's the little what if monster again.
Right. It's got the strategies attached to it. It's not just well, it's a teaching, but the strategies I think are really helpful for a lot of
That's
kids.
right. And it's got a wide range of emotions in it. So think of the fun conversations you could have. Okay, this is what the what if monster does. What would you do? So yeah, I like that one. The resource page, Janice, Hannah, where would they find the handouts?
So they're on our Canvas page. If this is your first time, you'll be receiving a link to enter the Canvas page after this meeting. And we'll also be putting them up on the website within the next week. So I will make sure you all have availability to those.
Yeah, and again, Calming Corner added a bunch of sensory calming. So it doesn't just have to be like Tucker Turtle, that kind of thing. I think that variety again, so it works for different children. I mean, one person even had a set of headphones in there because she had two children that needed to be able literally just to kind of shut out and then calm.
Well, it's about time to move on to our real situations case presentation. Were there any last questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, Tweety. It was great having you here, and I'll make sure that everyone can have your contact information and be able to get in touch with you if there's any questions.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks, Tweety. So now we will move over to our real situations, real solutions presentation. I believe Janet is presenting today. Is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately, Katie had to leave to do with the case presentation, actually, to go to a conference with the preschool, the special ed preschool that her son's in. So that was very important to her. So she was hoping she could present before she had to leave, but she's done an amazing job of writing up all the background information. Whatever you want, I can read it out, but if you just want to read it yourselves, whatever you want to do. I can
Would you
give
like-
a kind of introduction to Katie and the preschool.
Would you like me to share her presentation, or do you have it pulled up, Janet?
I've got it pulled up,
Perfect.
but why don't you share it? Oh no, I've got it. I found it. It's there. Yeah. Okay, we've got it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we'll just start. I'm Janet Wade. I'm an external coach for Kids First. And Teresa is also on here. And Teresa is a Children's Center consultant who's actually worked with Katie on the behavior plan that was put together. So I'm just going to read this out. Katie's a director of Kids First Childcare in Layton. She's been there for 11 years and she wears many hats. And I can attest to that. She does everything. And she also makes the best chicken chili soup. It's really good. One of the hats that has been added to her collection is mom of a child enrolled in her program. Being the mom of a child in a program and the director is very hard to balance. And I know I have other programs that I'm an external coach for that also has this situation. And Katie's also really, it works on her own education. She's been enrolled in school for the last year, and that's taken up a lot of time too. She works 10 to 12 hours a day, and she provides support in all classes. So her son is 4 years old and has been attending the childcare at Kids First since he was 8 weeks old. He attends 8 to 10 hours a day. He often observes Katie helping other children and teachers while ignoring him because she's working. He has 3 older siblings, a 10-year-old brother, 13-year-old sister, and an 18-year-old brother. And he was assessed as a 2-year-old and again in November. And assessments determined he's developmentally advanced, referred to school district preschool to monitor observed behavioral concerns, and began attending additional preschool 2 days a week for 2 hours a day in December. So the center environment is a lovely center. It's small, cozy, and home-like, with 5 classrooms with ages 6 weeks to 12 years old. They do an after-school program too. Classes are mixed-age classrooms that have large group sizes based on licensing regulations. Rooms are set up based on ITAs and ECA standards and have a variety of materials in 5 to 7 interest areas for children to choose their activities. At home, parents are married, both parents work full-time, and both parents have children from previous marriages who split their time between our home, Katie's home, and the other parent's home. So that's the background, and I'm going to hope that I can't make it. It doesn't want to move any. Oh, there we go. Concerns. Kai has an explosive temper and an inability to regulate emotions. Temper tantrums that result in throwing furniture, dumping toys, and destruction of property occurs frequently. This behavior occurs at home and at childcare. Harms teachers and peers by kicking, hitting, and scratching. Occurs infrequently, but worth noting. Seeks attention and becomes upset when does not receive the attention he is seeking. He seeks adult and peer approval. He seeks praise and becomes upset, angry when others receive praise. He becomes upset, angry when he's not right. For example, 3 minus 2 equals 4. When corrected, try again and count 3 plus 2 on your fingers. And he realizes it is 5, but he becomes angry because he wanted to be right the first time. He leaves his classroom frequently to find mom. Is triggered by loud noise, crowding, and overstimulation and name calling. The classroom assignment was a mixed-age classroom with 3 to 5-year-olds. Kay is very smart and seemed bored, and he often gets frustrated when peers get in his space, take things, or try to join his play when unwanted. Teachers' behaviors. Teachers often assume they know what happened when Kai becomes upset or angry, and they don't allow Kay to communicate his needs or feelings. They do not validate his feelings regarding the triggers for his tantrum. For example, Child took something and he hit them, Child pushed him and he pushed back. Mom's behavior and reactions. She gets frustrated because she's juggling all those hats. Avoidance of classroom that Kai's in, and also avoidance of Kai. Real intensive behaviorist support team was created. Parents, both mom and dad, teachers involved directly, the management team and behavior specialists from the Children's Center. And they're now implementing a new plan. I actually sat in on that behavior meeting and it was wonderful. Teresa did a great job of finding as much information as she could. And I know Teresa's been in the center observing as well. So working on desired behaviors, calm down space and materials, support K, classroom assignment, room arrangement, limited group sizes, display classroom and center rules and expectations. Mama scheduled time in the classroom to just spend time with Kay. 5 minutes a drop off, 5 minutes mid-morning, join Kay for lunch, and last visit around 3. So have not determined what the consequences are when undesired behaviors occur. When Kay leaves the classroom to find Katie, there's name calling and hurts another child. So helping him to understand he isn't always going to win, be right, be first, and how to balance work, parenting, when your child is enrolled in the same center or classroom. So one of the things as well, because we were able to do it, we were able to bring the Children's Center in early. So we kind of turned the pyramid on its head a little bit, but we have been talking a lot about the environment. And when I was in on Thursday, Katie and the teacher was so excited because it spent 2 days totally redesigning the classroom, and it was wonderful. It was almost straight out of Pyramid, but they were so excited because they did it themselves. You know, nobody kind of laid it out for them. Nobody came in and did it for them. They did it, and they've also changed the age grouping. So I won't say any more because you might come up with that in your groups. So I don't want to give you all the answers. Okay, any questions?
So Janet, I just want to clarify and make sure I understand what Katie's asking for. So she wants help, one, maybe figuring out consequences for when Kay leaves the classroom or
Right.
doesn't do the desired behaviors. 2, help with how to help Kay do the desired behaviors, and 3, how to help her figure out how to juggle all these responsibilities.
Yeah, it was in those. And one of the teachers at Kids First showed me how to go back when it's on shared screens. You learn something new every day. Yeah, when clear, yeah. What consequences are when undesired behaviors occur? So those are the things that for you to discuss. Teresa, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so because I want to see
Yeah.
what comes of this, but yeah, they have already established some replacement behaviors and some strategies for responding to those behaviors. Um, yeah, I don't want to say too much.
I know. No, I'd be interested to, yeah, we want you to give us some more ideas. So
Yes.
There's a question in the chat. How old is he? And I had the same question.
5, right, Teresa? 5.
Yes, he's 5 and 5 months, so 5.5.
Right.
So he'll go to kindergarten in the fall,
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
And you said that it sounded like he's getting bored. Is that like because he's quite smart? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, that could be part of the problem. I mean, there's a lot of things going on there.
I was just wondering if he acts up because he needs some other things to do, maybe. I don't know. Just thinking that.
Are we going to do breakout rooms, Hannah?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
No, you're good. It's good to ask all the questions. So we're gonna head into breakout rooms now. If anyone has any more questions for Janet, you can message her or message me or Faustine, and we will get the question to Janet. And our facilitators today, we will have Betsy, Amy, Debbie, Mandy, and Kurt. And so let me see. Betsy, Amy, and Debbie, could your group start with helping Kay and strategies for helping him and thinking about consequences for undesired behaviors? And then Mandy and Kurt, could your group start with helping the mom and how she can balance work and parenting with her child being in the same center and classroom?
Hannah, can you tell me my questions again? Sorry.
Yes, sorry. So for Betsy, Amy, and Debbie, can you start with just helping with strategies for Kay, and possible consequences for his undesired behaviors?
Thank you.
And sorry, we'll be moving down to 4 groups, so we'll just have Mandy's group. If your group could start with helping Katie, and 2 breakout rooms. Hi, everyone. Welcome back from your breakout groups. Sorry to cut the time short, but I wanted to have a little moment at the end to kind of discuss in group what everyone was talking about. So I'd love to start with Betsy's group and then Amy's group, Debbie's, and then Mandy's, just 1 or 2 suggestions that your group talked about. So Betsy, if you wouldn't mind going ahead, or your note taker.
Yeah, so I took the notes in that group. We talked about a lot of things, a lot of questions we still had about what was triggering behaviors, what kind of things they're using and that sort of thing, not being in the environment, difficult to know. But one that came out toward the end was about spending with mom. It seemed like that was a reinforcer where she was starting to come in the classroom a couple times during the day and having lunch with them. And the suggestion was made, maybe they don't need that long of a 5-minute, maybe more frequent, shorter periods of time with mom. So maybe every hour for a minute or something like that would be more beneficial to him in helping him maintain his behaviors versus 3 times a day for 5 minutes. So
I love that idea. Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, so we talked about maybe doing a preference assessment with him to see, is there anything else that's motivating? Sometimes there's things that we don't realize right off, so maybe they could hit it and find something else that would motivate him. And then maybe having mom come in, like we said, more frequently, and maybe catching some of that before a behavior occurs, so we build on some positive momentum. And then also, as they're working on getting those pyramid practices in place, once we get the base in place, then maybe they can identify some targeted social emotional supports that come after that base foundation is there.
Absolutely. Debbie, if you could share a little bit. Hi, Debbie, you are on mute.
Let me just talk to myself. So yes, we had a good conversation, some great feedback. So we also agreed that maybe shaking up mom's time a little bit in the fact that either or more frequent or maybe even a longer time occasionally during the day. We also said that we really want to put lots, front load that reinforcement at the beginning. So he's getting a lot of reinforcement for good behavior, because we don't want the social emotional outbursts to be the reason why he gets to see mom. You never want that to be the case. And then give him more input into his day. I love where the preference assessment, so you could do that and do a couple preferred activities, a non-preferred activity, couple of preferred, to try to negate those bad behaviors that we might be seeing, or those social emotional outbursts. To really find out what he likes to do. If he's that smart, then we want to give him activities that are motivating to him to be good. So that's kind of what we came up with.
Awesome, thank you. And then Mandy?
So our conversation kept drifting towards what to do to help Kay. But I think the reason is because if there are some things in place to help Kay, then mom has an easier job of actually accomplishing her work. But a couple of ideas, we talked about having, what are high value connections for Kay? What is going to make a difference in his day? And also, what are some high value self-care things for mom? Those deal breakers that she just really needs to get through her day. And then also, to have good boundaries. Like, he doesn't go with her on the weekends when the other kids are not there, so he doesn't have free reign. And it's too confusing if he has that opportunity one day a week but not the other days, to just kind of have the whole place to himself and do whatever he wants.
Yeah, those are awesome points. And I think I totally agree that once you help Kay more, that will help the mom more, and make it easier on her. Did anyone have any last thoughts they wanted to share that they didn't get a chance to? Well, great. It was so great to have you all here today. Just a reminder, if you could send the notes from the breakout sessions to Faustine, her email is in the chat. Our next Echo session will be February 26th at the same time from 1 to 2:30, and it will be on friendship skills. So if there's anyone that hasn't been coming that could benefit from learning about friendship skills and strategies with that, please invite them. And we would really appreciate it if you fill out the survey just so we can hear your feedback. And I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.